Glad you could join us. Now, the former Maslock boss Takoradi Vigil has pleaded not guilty to all 80 counts of stealing, causing financial loss to the state, money laundering and contravention of the Public Procurement Act. Takoradi Vigil has been ordered to file defense in 10 days after the state gives her team documents on Tuesday. Now, Director of Public Prosecutions Yvonne Atakra Opobisa wants more time to file for the accused to respond, but the judge disagreed. The case is adjourned to March 4, 2019. Raymond Aqua joins me via telephone with details of proceedings. Raymond, the charges include misappropriation of public funds. What more is on the charge sheet?
Okay, so specifically issues ranging from how some 500,000 apparently was taken from Batampa Savings and Loans, a company that she deposited the amount with and demanded some 24% when it comes to interest. Specifically, that was what we are talking about. Again, there are also some buses that were bought from Maslow, so a huge number of them, which were, according to the charge sheet, inflated first and foremost, and the buses have not been put to use as we speak. There are also others related to her office and the things she was supposed to do. For example, she was supposed to have actually conducted some capacity building and other training across the country. This requires that virtually all the regions have representation. Some regions were not, in this case, given the training, and yet it was represented as having happened under the very hand of the woman we are dealing with in this case. So that is basically what the government of this Republic of Ghana is saying, that in all of these, out of the 80, we're talking about 35 different charges of stealing, and also collusion to steal in this particular case. Of course, you know, she started trial with one Daniel Azim, who also went to the Maslock within the period we are talking about. So in all of these cases, is either she is being charged alone or in collusion with Daniel Azim from the elements of specifically having to steal money from the state, from the coffers of Maslock, through the most of giving it to an institution and taking back the money, or on other hand, causing financial loss to the state. In fact, they added woefully causing financial loss to the state. Again, there's also an element of she causing some loss to the state by her deed directly in this particular case. So that's basically the frame which encapsulates all of the 80 in this case. In fact, something interesting happened. The prosecution, which was, of course, the Attorney General herself was there, the Deputy Attorney General Joseph Bensadu was there, but the prosecution was actually represented on her feet is Yvonne Atakra, who is actually the Director of Public Prosecutions. She insisted that she wanted to make some amendments to the charge sheet, but the judge said, I mean, there are just clerical errors and still require that any very strenuous process has to be taken. Again, the issue about bail came up. The prosecution, on the other side, the lawyers for Madame Ationu were of the opinion that she has cooperated since 2017 when the issue came up, and she's not going to run away anytime soon. Again, she is a pharmacist. She's not well known in this community. She has roots in the community and will not leave at any point in time. So she cannot be said to have been a problem if it comes to dealing with her at that level. But the response was not quick. The response in this case was that, no, she needs to at least have sureties. Two people we are looking at, one. And the other element is that 5 million is the bail bond. So the 5 million is the bail bond in this case. So she's also been given some time to file defense. I mean, immediately, you know, our new court structures demand that there is representation of all the documents that the Attorney General will be relying on, given to the accused in this case. That will happen in the coming days, and after that is done, they have about 10 days, and the judge was liberal, so after 30 days for them to file their defense. After that, somewhere around the 4th of March is when they will look at the court rules and general processes they have to go through and set the appropriate date for trial.
And this includes her deputy as well, who is standing trial with her? Yes. Is he also being charged for on 80 counts with the same charges as Madame Ationu?
No, not on all of them, actually, because there are reduced charges in this case. On most of them, we are counting that. In fact, his own is less than 50. That's why he has to bring only one surety, and is expected to only have a bail bond of 1 million cedis. But on the main element of stealing, in virtually all the elements where there's suspected collusion, the gentleman, Daniel Azim, is the one that's being brought up in this case.
Thank you, Raymond, for that update. Raymond Akwa is our man on the ground at the courthouse. Now, security analyst Imano Akweti is calling for a parliamentary probe into the Ayawaso West Wogon by-election security breaches. His call follows an earlier one by the minority in parliament. But Member of Parliament for Ablekuma West and Minister of Communication Esther Osu Ekufo shut down that suggestion, saying so many other breaches have gone uninvestigated, hence the need to ignore the Ayawaso West Wogon issue. Listen to her.
Bipartisan investigative committee into Talensi, into Chireponi, into Etiwa, into Akwetia, where a sitting member of parliament who was a polling agent was driven away from the polling station when he had every right to be there. I narrowly escaped injury in Akwetia. I have been assaulted in Odorodiodio. Did they institute any committee to investigate what happened to me in Odorodiodio? They were justifying that attack on me. How dare they?
But Mr. Akweti says to forestall future reoccurrence, there is a need to probe the disturbance, adding having parallel state institutions like National Security Minister and Minister of State in charge of national security could be leading to these lapses.
If you don't define what you mean by national security, the confines, the actors within, who has transparency over what, you give so much power, you concentrate so much power in the hands of some few. And particularly in liberal democracy, when you need parliament to play the oversight role. Once the details, the findings of what national security means, how it is used, it then assumes an operational level posture. And when you assume that operational level, it means that it can take people from military, from BNI, from police, and use them for activities outside the command and control of the regular, for example, if in the case of the police, the IGP or the Chief of Defense Staff. You understand? And so you might see people in police uniform who are actually police personnel, but on that particular operation, the IGP is not even aware, or the original commander is not aware, because they've been assigned to a particular institution like the State National Security, and they are doing things outside command and control. And when you do that, the danger, apart from, for example, extending that operation to include those who have not been properly recruited, properly trained, because you need discipline. It is not only giving them the weapons, and I'll come to weapons, but the discipline. And when I say discipline, it starts from recruitment and the training. And so if you are not careful and you don't define what national security means, and some will argue that then give us a national security policy, then we can all be on the same page. If you don't have that and you leave that room, and people will actually hide behind national security, recruit people, worst case scenario, arm them, use our money to finance them without accounting for the money transparently to even Parliament or Auditor General. And then if you don't control this group and you don't have the influence, you don't know where to end up.
Meanwhile, Executive Director for the Institute of Democratic Governance, IDEC, Dr. Imano Akweti, is questioning the role of national security in by-elections. He believes the decision to send extra security to safeguard the Ayawaso West Wogon by-election has brought global damage to the country. He spoke on Newsfile Saturday.
We have specific agencies. We see different clothes, black and khaki-like and police and so on. What are all this? But what I know is that when it's elections, the security command is the police. The police task force is led by the National Security Task Force is led by the IGP. You know, when you see the Chief of Staff of the Army on the task force, he's invited by the police. In fact, the police would also tell you that it's the Electoral Commission that has command over everything elections. They are invited, they consult, they ask them what they need, and so on and so forth. So the role of national security other than the police, or which is not under the command of the police, raises questions. Where are they from? How do we identify them? Now, this whole thing about national security, even the FBI has badges, you know. In critical circumstances, they will show you their badge. Are they badged? Can we say when push comes to shove and you say, please identify yourself? Because sometimes people would comply once you've shown your identity, that this is why you are here. But to just say I'm national security, so it's raised a lot of concerns about our security, whether we have parallel security structures, whether this came under the command of the police, or whether it's the police in different clothing and so on, or there are other forces. And that is why those who are demanding that this thing needs to be investigated speedily, thoroughly. I associate with a statement of Occupy Ghana. There's a potential criminality involved. People have been shot. They've been wounded. For what? In a public space, around, and so on. The police have to do their work thoroughly. I think the police must be strengthened to do their work, this investigation thoroughly, speedily. If they need help, others should be brought in. But I think the damage it has done, because it's gone, look, for the UNDP to issue a statement will tell you that it's global.
But the National Commission for Civic Education believes now more than ever it is imperative to take concrete steps to stamp out political vigilantism out of security issues. Chairperson of the Commission, Josephine Nkrumah, believes no matter the intelligence received, there was no need for interference from national security.
If at all there was actionable intelligence, I think by this point it's fair to say it was a really botched job. There's enough evidence to suggest that people who were meant to protect us became an intimidating actor. They became people who began to assault others, including an MP. And nothing at all warrants that kind of approach. It has put fear in the people of Ghana, and we are beginning to understand the essence of our consistent statement that we have to take a position to stamp out the political thugs that our democracy is being associated with now. For the UNDP to come out with a statement, it is a loaded and very significant turn of events that nobody should underestimate.
Still on this issue, the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, has condemned acts of violence and shooting incidents that characterized the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election. In a statement signed by the constituency chairman, the party is demanding answers on how many national operatives were deployed with weapons and live ammunition. So they begin the statement by thanking media houses for their work, the public sympathizers and supporters of the NDC. They also appreciate former President John Dramani Mahama for pausing his campaign tour of the Volta region to visit the victims. And then they condemn the police, and I'll read this for you. It says, we condemn the Ghana Police Service, the National Security, the Government of Ghana, and the Electoral Commission over the poor security arrangements on the election day, and particularly the failure of the IGP to provide security for the NDC parliamentary candidate, Delali Kwesi Brimpong, and agents, as well as members of its monitoring and observer teams on election day. Here it gets interesting. He says, we strongly disagree with government and its spokespersons on this matter, claiming the various unidentifiable masked gun thugs riding in police vehicles we saw on election day were from the national security outfit. So they go on in the next paragraph to reiterate this point, and then they ask a few questions. How many national security operatives were commissioned on the day to supervise the Ayawaso West Wuogon by-election? How many of them were given weapons and live ammunition? And how many M16 and AK-47 and accompanying ammunition were issued for their operations on election day, 31st January 2019. I'm going to skip and take you to the part where he says the NPP government, led by Nana Akufo-Addo, knew well they were losing the by-election, and the president hence decided to sacrifice the peace and security of the country for the parliamentary seat. They say they join various civil society organizations which are condemning the act, including Occupy Ghana, which is calling for a judicial committee of inquiry into the shooting incident to give hope and trust in our future democratic journey. Away from that issue, residents of Sekondi Takoradi in the Western region and surrounding communities have held a vigil for 3 girls believed to have been kidnapped. Although police say only 3 girls have been reported missing, residents say at least 4 more, most of them teenagers, have gone missing since last year. The vigil is the latest effort by residents of Takoradi to mount pressure on the police to hasten investigations into finding the girls.
Hundreds of residents thronged the dark streets holding lighted objects such as candles and lamps and prayed sporadically to seek the face of God in the impasse. Organizers of the event, Sky Media Group, hope to send a firm message to all residents they are stronger together, and also to pile pressure on security authorities to fast-track efforts to unite Priscilla Mantibia Kranchi 18, Priscilla Blessing Bentum 21, Ruth Love Quason 18 with their families. The vigil started with a walk of prayer through the principal streets of Takoradi around the Market Circle area, and later participants converged at the Jubilee Park. At the park, pastors led rounds of prayers to seek for God's guidance for the three young ladies.
By this time, where is Mayfair? What food is she eating? Is she really aware of what we are going through? What offense did she committed? At least if I was just praying and asking God, if she did something wrong, God should just use this opportunity, to forgive her so that she will come and join us. Up till now, we don't sleep. We always weep. We always think of where is she now? Does she know that we are fighting for her to come back? And we don't know. From what we've done today, we are hoping for the best. We pray that she will come alive and very fit. That is what we are all hoping for.
Our message is short. Bring back our guests. We want our 3 guests. It's necessary. I think it's long overdue. It's about 5 months now. The securities are doing their best. That one is okay. But we realize that we need to do something spiritual, both spiritual and physically, that will help the investigation. Now, this we are giving ourselves a week. We believe in that God will do something. A miracle will happen.
Well, we are grateful to everyone for coming, and especially to the media house who organized this vigil night. We know that our God has answered our prayer this week. So we are hoping that next week by this time, then the kids are in and our sister too are in. That's what we are hoping for.
So you are hopeful?
Yeah, we are.
And I know now you have some confidence in the police, isn't it?
In the police, yeah, we do have, because as I'm talking to you, the thing is now in the Accra headquarters. So we hope that by the close of this week, there will be a positive news out of everything that they are doing.
So grateful unto God for this day. We serve a living God, and we are hoping that even as we've prayed, we are hoping that by next week we will hear from the people. And we are trusting God because our God is a living God.
The vigil was largely patronized by members of various churches and other groups in the region.
Now, you can also join the Joy News campaign, #BringBackOurTardy Girls, on all social media platforms. If you see something, say something. The girls include 15-year-old Priscilla Mantibia Kranchi, 18-year-old Ruth Love Quason, and 21-year-old Priscilla Blessing Bentum. Let's go to our earlier story on security. And member of the Council of State, Sam Okujeto, has descended heavily on the national security apparatus for sanctioning the shooting incident during the Ayers West Bogon by-election. National Security Minister Brian Echampong has said the men and operatives who fired gunshots at the home of the NDC candidate in that election, Delale Kwesi Brimpong, injuring 8 persons, were acting on official assignment. Mr. Okujeto, however, says their action is lawless and must be probed by appropriate authorities immediately. Speaking on the Super Morning Show in Joy 99.7 FM, Mr. Okujeto hinted that he would be raising the issue with the Council of State He also ended by condemning the response by former President John Mahama.
What was the basis for asking people to take guns to go and start shooting at an election? It doesn't make any sense to me. In Accra also, for that matter. It is not a rural area. This is Accra.
Well, Mr. Kujeto, that's why we are having this conversation with you this morning, so that we give ear and we give space to these calls to be made. But you are a senior lawyer and a statesman. Does national security mean or warrant working outside what we know as the boundaries of the law?
No. My personal view, nothing to the Council of State or anything like that.
Okay.
My personal view has always been that nobody is above the law. This has been my stand throughout my life. And in my life, even as a lawyer, I've always insisted that nobody is above the law and that the law must always take its course. That if somebody acts outside the law, then he's actually making himself lawless. And the law must be allowed to deal with such a person or group of persons, whatever they may be. This has always been my stand. Because if everybody takes the law into his own hands, where are we going to be? So the issue is simply that I think you, the media, should insist. And now that you have said that I have also heard it, I can say this also to my own people in the Council of State, to say that we should insist to an inquiry to be made into that thing, to see how it came about that people have gone in masks in Accra shooting guns. That also is irresponsibility. You know, we respect former presidents. It's very important that we should have former office holders still in society, and they should look at themselves in that light. They are supposed to set the standard, the example for others to follow. And therefore, if something like this happens, the president, the former president, has access to the current president. He has access to him. This is a matter you should take up with them to talk about and insist that the right thing be done, not to make provocative statement of that nature. Because what he's saying then is an encouragement for others, maybe in the NDC, to say that they can also behave the same way. You know that two wrongs don't make a right.
Still live on Joy News today, we move to other stories. In the United States of America will apply some restrictions to visa applications from members of parliament, members of the executive, and diplomats. The decision by the U.S., according to its ambassador to Ghana, Stephanie Sullivan, is as a result of failed bilateral efforts to resolve issuing passports for Ghanaians who are subject to deportation orders within 30 days, in line with the UN Convention on International Civil Aviation. Ms. Sullivan also indicated the sanctions could be extended to the wider population if no action is taken soon. She gave the explanation in her first encounter with the media on Friday. There's more in the following report.
If that is what is to be done, I don't have to give the U.S. permission to deport the very person they themselves accepted.
Ghana's ambassador to the U.S., Dr. Ejay Bewa, explaining Ghana's agreement with the superpower on how deportation of Ghanaian nationals should be handled. But U.S. ambassador to Ghana, Stephanie Sullivan, says this is not in compliance with international standards.
The government of Ghana has consistently not met in a timely way this internationally mandated standard of the UN Convention on International Civil Aviation, to which Ghana is a party.
Ghana's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in a statement, rejects the claim of lack of cooperation.
It is therefore surprising that the U.S. authorities would ignore the international protocols that need to be observed in matters of deportation and make allegations of lack of cooperation by Ghana. The ministry wishes to state that these allegations are unfounded and the sanctions imposed on Ghana are without any justification whatsoever.
The U.S. government is, however, going ahead with the imposition of the sanctions today.
Effective Monday, February 4th, we will pause issuance of all new visas for domestic employees of Ghanaian diplomats. We are limiting the normal 5-year validity for tourist and business visas for all Ghanaian executive and legislative branch employees, their spouses, and children under age 21.
But international relations expert Dr. Vladimir Nchidanso describes the move as bullying and is urging the Guinean government to engage in an intensive discussion with the U.S. while remaining firm on its stance to prevent further bullying on the matter.
To what extent do you think these sanctions can affect us as a country?
It definitely will. It definitely will affect, because the persons upon whom the sanctions have been imposed are persons who are intrinsically linked to our governance system. And so in that sense it will, if we don't comply. But it is in the compliance that our relationship are also relayed. It looks as though there is some bullying going on, and the Ghana government should have taken some other steps, because Ghana is not guilty in this sense.
So U.S. Ambassador to Ghana says if the country is unable to take some actions between now and the coming months, it is likely to extend the sanctions to the wider population. What would you suggest we do in the meantime?
There's nothing you can do when these things are concerned. It's diplomacy, it's talk, Jojo. The point is that the Ghana government could not just rush to give documents to any other person who purports to be a Ghanaian. I mean, the United States is guilty itself also of accepting people into their country, legally or illegally. Once the person enters the country, he has some kind of legal international obligation with the host country. And so the United Nations, the United States cannot tell us that they don't have documents on those persons to show whether they are Ghanaians or not. In the first place, they will have to prove that they are Ghanaians before the Ghanaian authorities issue documents. I think that's the bone of contention. And the Ghana government should stand firm on those issues.
Mm-hmm. Could this have been handled any other way?
I don't think so. The only way is what I'm talking about, that they should have judged on who is a Ghanaian. There is a possibility that there are all of them who are Nigerians, who are Belgians, who are whatever it is. The fact that they are blacks doesn't mean that they are Ghanaians. And they entered the country, that is the U.S., through some other means, through some border. There is documentation on them. Why is the U.S. not ready to give such documentation now that we end this kind of stalemate? And I think they are just bullying. They just want some people out of the country. And therefore, anybody who says that, and personally, I have experienced a situation where some people were being brought, who were in a plane. They reached Ghana and they said they are not Ghanaians. They were holding Ghanaian passports. And they were going to Benin and other places like that. So in this case, we need to seriously judge. We could have avoided this by the U.S. also playing ball.
Now, Head of Corporate Affairs at the National Identification Authority, Francis Palmdetti, has warned against rejecting the national identification as a legal identification document. His warning comes on the back of reports that some organizations, particularly banks, are refusing to accept the national ID card as a form of identification. Speaking on News Desk earlier, Palmdetti warns the National Health Insurance Authority can take legal action against anyone who rejects the card.
Essentially is to have a chunk of people in the national database, and when that is done, you know, we have mobile registration equipments going along with us. When that is done, our intention is we are supposed to create district offices. We have those offices created with the equipment in those offices registering people, and then have some of them deployed at the major health facilities for newborns to be registered. Okay. So registration is not a one-day event. It will be continuous after we are done with the mass registration.
Just before you go, what can people do with their national identification cards as they have them right now, those who do?
It's the law says that that's the document you need to present when it comes to you identifying yourself. We've heard of people going to the bank, some banks, and the
banks refusing them.
They're refusing them.
Yes.
They are not refusing them because they are invalid or they're illegitimate. I've heard some bankers say that they have the software which has in it the EC, the voter ID card, driver's license, and passports in that port. So when people come with those documents, they're able to verify, to check whether the document they want.
But they don't have your data.
They don't have ours in that port.
Why not?
Because the NIA would have its own verification models, and those verification models are directed at the banks and telcos. So we are not in that port yet. Obviously, we have just a wee chunk of the populace in our database. We are still building the database.
So what it means is that you get your card now, but really pretty much it's useless.
It's not useless. I mean, it's a very legitimate card. It's also an ECOWAS travel document. And so it's not just for banking transactions. Where you have to identify yourself, that is the card to present. In fact, if the banks are using even the software as an excuse, it is against the law. The law says that for purpose of identification, the Ghana card is what must be inspected.
So what the banks are doing right now is unlawful?
Yes.
What does the authority intend to do about it then?
I think I am aware the authorities in discussions with the Bank of Ghana on that matter, and I'm sure some resolution will be brought to bear.
So live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Dazi. Daryl joins us in a moment with business, and he'll be telling you how Vodafone is challenging the Ghana Stock Exchange's push for compulsory listing, describing it as misplaced. There's more when we come back.